afternoon. Welcome to Business This Week on Independent Television. I am Blessing Aichi. Now, today on the show, we're looking at public finance management in Nigeria. Now, in a time where we get to hear unremitted funds by government agencies, we wonder why is that the case in Nigeria. So, we will take a close look at management of public finance in Nigeria. As you know, we'll bring you a roundup of business activities for the week, and I'll come to you in a bit. Just stay tuned. Our first story in Business Roundup says the federal government generated 392.77 billion naira as company income tax (CIT) in the first quarter of this year, 2021. This represents a 33% quarter-on-quarter increase in CIT when compared to 295.7 billion naira generated in the fourth quarter of 2020. In its CIT by sector report for first quarter of 2021 released, the National Bureau of Statistics (NBS) said that the CIT generated in the first quarter of 2021 comprises 152.33 billion naira generated locally and 184.59 billion naira generated as foreign CIT payments. The balance of 55.85 billion naira was generated as CIT from other payments. Meanwhile, the National Bureau of Statistics has disclosed that breweries, beverages, and bottling companies generated the highest amount of company income tax (CIT) with 23.26 billion naira, closely followed by professional services, including telecoms, which generated 18.17 billion naira. It said ministries and parastatals generated 17.35 billion naira, while textile and garment industry generated the least, and closely followed by mining and automobiles and assemblies with 13.49 million naira, 34.40 million naira, and 73.57 million naira generated respectively. Away from tax, the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency (Nnpc) has charged local barge operators to up their game to prevent foreign shipping lines who are investing in the acquisition of foreign-class barges from taking over their business. Speaking in Lagos, Head Maritime Safety Engineer Olu Aladenusi noted that most Nigerian barge operators do not have classed facilities, and some are not even the owners of the barges that they are operating with. Aladenusi was responding to the Executive Secretary of Nigerian Shippers Council (NSC), Hassan Bello, who said barge operators are complaining about foreigners taking over the operation in contravention of the cabotage law. Bello had gone to visit the Director General of Nnpc, Bashir Jamo, to seek support of Nnpc for grading its operations ahead of the commencement of the 24 hours operations. He stated that Nnpc got a letter from the Ministry of Transportation to work with Nigeria Port Authority (NPA), and there have been collaboration between both agencies to reduce the challenges as regards bad operations. Now let's go to the prowler market and find where the naira stands against major currencies in the world. And that's its own business roundup for this week. We'll take a break. When we return, it'll be time to talk business. Thank you so much for staying with us on Talking Business. Now let's get into today's issue, public finance. We're looking at harmonization and transparency. That's our focus today. I have someone joining us via Zoom, Dr. Ken Mudugu. He is an economist and also a finance expert. Good afternoon, Dr. Ken.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, viewers, and good afternoon, listeners.
Yeah, thank you for joining us today on the show. All right, so I also have someone who is physically present in the studio. You know him, Destiny Owobu, an economist and also a statistician. Welcome to the show today.
Thank you for having me, as usual.
It's always my pleasure.
Thank you.
All right, so let's begin with you, Dr. Kerem Odugu. Public finance, what should it be ideally? What does public finance entail?
Well, looking at it at a very basic level, when you talk about public finance, it has to do with the whole machinery that is involved in ensuring that government generates revenue and the management of same for the good governance of the country. So public finance, in its very elementary meaning, connotes the idea of the government of a country, in this case, let's say Nigeria, generating revenue from different sources to fund its budget. So what that means is that the government puts machinery in motion to ensure that revenues are collected from different sources and the same are channeled into series of sectors in the economy in order to deliver good governance to the greater number of the entire citizenry. So that is what it means, generally.
Okay. Now, Destiny Obu, looking at the way we run things in Nigeria, the way we handle our public finance, does it seem like we're getting it in the way it should be, or we're handling our finance the way it should be handled?
Yes, actually, the science of managing the budget is a complex science. Even the fact that you have to deal with a lot of ministries, a lot of development needs of society. You have to do some trade-offs. What do you do? Do you focus more on the present or on the future?
Okay.
Now, if you are having the present in mind, then you should be looking at heavy recurrent spending or revenue spending. But if you are having the future in mind, then you should be looking at capital projects that have impact on generating income in the future. So it's a science as well as an art. You are going to look at which one will deliver the best goods to society. Is it focused on activities that generate income now, but make the country poorer in the future, or focus on activities that generate a lot of discomfort now, but in the future it may generate a lot of wealth. So in that area, we have been looking at our budgets in the last 10, 15 years. The focus has been, most of our budget is draining. We'll be taking away, paying salaries, spending a lot of money from the budget, while the capital aspect of the budget has just been between 10 and 15 or 20% in the last 10 years. Just merely looking at our entire budget, you see that most of the money goes to pay salaries. We are not making concrete spending that will generate more income in the future. Okay, so that's because Nigeria is a poor country. Like I always tell people, the budget of Nigeria is between 30 and 40 billion dollars. That's the entire budget that runs this country.
Okay.
With a country of 206 million people, 30 or 40 billion dollars is peanuts compared to what is expected to grow and industrialize this country.
Okay.
I'll give you other countries so that you understand. The budget of South Africa is about $150 billion.
Okay. That's like times 3 of what
a country that is not even divided by 4 of our population. So South Africa, $150 billion, Nigeria, $40 billion. The US spends close to about $4 to $6 trillion on their economy. So these are things you are going to look at. The money we have in our budget, the entire budget itself, which is just about 11 trillion naira, is it enough to grow and industrialize this country? Does this sort the needs of the people in terms of their capital needs, their revenue needs, their salary needs, and things like that? In fact, as we speak, we still borrow to fund the budget. Even as small as it is.
It's been running on deficits for quite a while.
For quite some time now. So that is where the management comes in. Public finance management has to do with how do you use these small resources to get the greatest good to the greatest number. A political philosopher, his name is Jeremy Bentham, said, the will of the state is to provide the greatest happiness for the greatest number of people. Now, government cannot solve the problems of all members of society. But with the amount of resources, the meager resources it has, it's able to optimize how it is used to generate the greatest number of people. Then we can give it a pass mark. To that extent, if we are going to judge Nigerian government, they've not been able to actualize the dreams of this country using the budget. What we have been seeing are questions of inadequate budgeting, a lot of financial malfeasance, a lot of misappropriation, misapplication of the budget, a lot of padding the budget, a lot of adding irrelevant white elephant projects in the budget, a lot of budgets not being used for what it is designed for. These are the kind of things we hear about our budgets, and for me, if you want to put a grade on that, if it was a WAEC, we would say the budgeting of Nigeria is just a D. It's just a basic pass mark. They've not really actualized the objectives of those budgets which they have been passing for years.
Okay, we'll come back to allocation of resources, but Dr. Ken, in generating more revenue, because one of the issues has always been lack of funds. Government has always complained of not having enough to take care of the needs that the country has. Some time ago, TSA was set up to mop up resources so that there will be no leakage. Does it seem like TSA is still operational in Nigeria in a bid to harmonize funds?
All right, let's put these issues in perspective.
Okay.
TSA was necessitated by the humongous corruption that permeates all agencies of government in Nigeria. To that extent, they decided, the government of Jonathan, as it then was, decided to introduce the TSA through the Minister of Finance, which they couldn't implement until Buhari came on board and they mainstreamed it into the public financial management. Now, the question is, how effective has it been? Like I've always argued, institutions don't run themselves. People run them. Sometimes in Nigeria, we have consistently been hoodwinked to believing that we can have better institutions if we do not first and foremost consciously create them. Now, how do I mean? The issue is that TSA in itself is a very brilliant idea, because if you look at the relevant sections of the Constitution, to be precise, Section 162 of the Nigerian Constitution states clearly that all monies, I repeat, all monies accruing to the Federation should be paid into a central pool called the Federation account. This is a constitutional matter. So to that extent, according to the same Constitution, any section or any other act that is inconsistent with that provision, that act, to the extent of its inconsistency, shall be void. And the supreme legal document of the country, which is Constitution, shall prevail. Now, the issue has been that people, all right, who have been asked to manage these resources over time blunder them, because there is no rule of law, because there are no consequences for action. A country on the path of development, a country that is actually well positioned to deliver good governance to its people, must invigorate institutions more than people. Now, what you have seen in Nigeria is that the TSA, as it were, has become ineffective because the people managing that TSA themselves are corrupt. There is greed that pervades every system of the country. So, with the TSA in itself, it's just on paper. Now, how do you explain that monies that were meant to be channeled into a central pool didn't go into the pools? And agencies responsible for the monitoring of the transfer of same didn't wake up from their slumber until there was a whistle blown. Come on, it can't work. All right. So the point I'm trying to make is that the TSA in itself is not a bad idea. However, the institutions that are supposed to midwife it, that are supposed to make it work, are themselves very, very weak. So to that extent, people take advantage of the loopholes in the system and decide to crumble the system. Now, look at the case of the NPA, which is the case in point. Now the question is, if you look at the report, we're told that between 2016 and 2021, 165 billion. The question is, where are the internal control mechanisms that ought to have detected that over a period of time? Because the remittances ought to be probably a daily basis. Because when you say TSA means whatever is accruing to the government on a daily basis. So it's not a matter of weeks, it's not a matter of months. It's supposed to be on a daily basis. the government of Nigeria, through its Ministry of Finance and other relevant agencies like the Central Bank, will say, oh, Nigeria today has been able to gather a certain amount into its federation account on a daily basis, especially with the advent of, fintech, which allows all of these to be wired without human involvement. And somehow, these people, because again, there is no rule of law, because there are no consequences, all right, they create some enablers to ensure that this common patrimony is plundered, of course, among a select few. So until we ensure that we strengthen our institutions and there are consequences for action, we are not there yet.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ken. Now, Destiny.
Yes.
He mentioned control mechanism.
Yes.
Because for you not to have remitted surplus for 1 year,
of course,
nobody blew whistle. Nobody talked about it. And this is 2021.
Yes.
We're talking about unremitted surplus spanning from 2017 till now, or even if it had happened for just 1 year.
Yes.
Now, how do we create that control mechanism? Some have talked about automated systems, that when you want to do business with government agencies, the payment should be automated so it's easy to track.
Yes.
Is that possible?
Like my friend said, we do not have a shortage of policies, blueprints, methods, like the TSA and things like that. We don't have a shortage of such things. It's just that anytime things come to Nigeria and we adopt them, we forget one component, one very, very important component, the human component.
Okay.
The cultural attitudes of the people that are going to operate the system. Now, systems are designed to be smart. They're supposed to be based on logical activities that flow from one part to the other, so that there will be checks within the system. Now, there should not be some element of collusion for a system to work. No matter how foolproof a system is, if there are not checks enough, or the checkpoints find a way to collude, everything will just run through the system and nobody will take note. Now, there are so many checks within the public management system which has been created over the years. If you check the full schema of everything, public finance is very excellent. Nigeria has a very beautiful document of organizing budgets. We have this Fiscal Responsibility Act that controls how you report budgets, what should be put there, how people have rights to budgets, and how to spend from it. We have the Public Procurement Act, which ensures that anytime government spends, it follows due process.
Okay.
We have the Auditor General, we have the Accountant General, we have auditors in ministries, internal auditors, we have external auditors, we have so many multiple checks and balances. Even in the House of Assembly, we have the Public Action Committee, we have a lot of bodies. So
if we have all of these on paper, where does the problem come from?
The problem comes from the human beings. In fact, these human beings are very corrupt, twisted human beings. Once you put twisted human beings inside the system will fail. It will fail. For example, we talked about 165 billion in 5 years. No alarm, no consequences for actions. Okay, now there's an alarm. Let's watch what is going to happen. This matter, they will go and set up an oversight board, which they have set up now to investigate. And then you'll be waiting for the investigative report. You will not see it in the next 5 years. Nobody will go to jail.
Well, let's not preempt this particular case.
I am saying this, I can preempt because in statistics, we can use the past to forecast the future. Okay? It's basic trend analysis. What happened to all the investigations that you've heard about public finance, about stealings? What happened to the Nnpc report? What have you heard about it recently? What happened in the subsidy scandal when they investigated, and then Farouk Lawan and some other people were indicted, and some oil companies were indicted? What happened to that? That was 7-8 years ago. What happened? Who went to jail for breaching our finance management? Nobody. In fact, all the committees we have set up in the last 10 years, we've not seen anything tangible. Nobody, I repeat, nobody important have gone to jail in the last 10 years in this country that we can point to. Nobody important. We hear of billions being stolen. Billions here, billions there. You see they set up a panel, somebody faints on the panel and sleeps on the ground, and then we laugh over it. We have a culture of impunity where people do things without any consequence whatsoever. It appears as if the government is weak compared to the citizens. In fact, institutions everywhere in the world tend to be larger than life, so that human beings are termites. You cannot break the system. But here, what we have is bourgeois, people big enough to override the system, redefine the system, and do whatever they like in that system. Now, the Minister of Transport is setting up a body to investigate this issue. Whereas we have an EFCC, whose major mandate is to investigate financial crimes. That is his job. Now, the EFCC will not make any move until government instructs them to make move. In developed countries, the president or the governor or the minister has no right to tell the financial world what to do. When they see an issue
in our environment,
yes,
wouldn't that be misconstrued as witch hunting?
It's not.
If the EFCC had gone ahead without the directive of the federal government.
Who is witch hunting who? When the information came out, it was not partisan. Information came outside, the money is unremitted. Whether if it is, even the question of witch hunting is irrelevant. You witch hunt only a person. You witch hunt a person if you suspect that it's a witch. Let's start from there. Now, if both of us are in different parties and I accuse you of stealing, Nigerians tend to focus on why I accused you instead of focusing on whether you stole or not. It is legal to witch hunt if the witch is a suspected witch. If you suspect that I'm a thief and you call the police to come and arrest me, people are going to say you are witch hunting me. The question is, am I a thief or not? That's the police job. So if you say they are witch hunting somebody and then the person is investigated and the person is found not guilty, what is the witch hunt there? But if the person is investigated and is found guilty, it's not a witch hunting. It is raising alarm. That's what it is. And because they are competing interests in government, people have a right to witch hunt a person legally, as long as they do it legally. When you say you are blowing whistle, what are you really doing when you are blowing whistle? You are witch hunting. You want the police to act and deal with somebody. So this witch hunting thing, political gimmick, we should stop saying this. What we should focus on is who breaks the law, who should go to jail. If you break the law, no matter how powerful you are, no matter what political party you belong to, you should be able to be tried in a competent court of law and you should go to jail. Now people, go and check our budget. I just told you, a meager $40 billion budget. And yet the amount of leakages in that budget, if you see the amount of money missing somewhere in that $40 billion, you ask whether this country will make progress. Now, what we are saying is this: we have the Auditor General, I told you, we have the Accountant General, we have laws, we have the Federation Account, we have the Consolidated Revenue Fund. There are laws to show where we should pay all the money to, who should audit and when to audit, when to present accounts, who should be able to sue when there's a problem, who can force the government to report on the activities of government. We have transparency principles, we have equity principles, we have accountability principles. If you see these things on paper, I'm telling you, Nigerians are very good when it comes to organizing a set of data founded around talk.
Okay.
Yet, when it comes to action, we fail miserably. And let me tell you something. Until we take the bull by the horn, begin to take our budget seriously and tell people it's a sacred document. People don't even understand what a budget is. It's a law. A budget is not just a paper. It's a law. Once it is passed by the National Assembly, it becomes a legal document. So that when you break any provisions of the budget, you should go to jail. Question: who has gone to jail in this country in the last 10 years for misappropriating, misapplicating the funds inside the budget, or stealing from it, outright fraud? Who?
Okay.
Once we begin to answer such questions, we'll make some progress.
Now, Dr. Ken, back to you now. In trying to ask the question, who has gone to jail for misappropriating the budget, but let's not even get to the budget. Leakages in government agencies, ministries, and departments. Who's to blow the whistle? Destiny has been able to establish that these things are already enshrined in the Constitution. They are lawful, that you know everybody's responsibility. But it seems like at the point of implementation, nobody knows who's to do the job. For instance, when there are leakages in a department or in an agency or even a ministry, who's to blow the whistle? Now, at the point where it is found that the person has been fraudulent in handling public finance, who's to also investigate the matter? Because we find that the National Assembly on some occasions have set up probe panels. Not now a panel has been set for the NPA, but the Nnpc seem to be a regular visitor to the National Assembly for probe purposes. Nothing, we see that they are being called once in a while to ask about under remittance. So is it the duty of the National Assembly to set up such probe, or we are supposed to be holding a particular body responsible for that duty. Is that why we're not saying that nobody is being punished for crimes like this, and so we have it ongoing?
All right. Your question is quite nebulous, and it will also require the same approach to be able to disaggregate it in order to appreciate its variance. First, the lead question is, who should blow the whistle?
Yes.
Now, let us put it in perspective. Now, let me start with Nnpc. Because, a larger chunk of our population are so ignorant, with due apology. Now, let me give you a little background to the Nnpc, which you mentioned. Nnpc was established in 1977, precisely April 1, 1977, as an oil company. Mind my word, not an agency, because oftentimes most Nigerians do not know that Nnpc is a company. I mean, it's like having a personal company that is supposed to be generating profits. In other words, Nnpc is a government company meant to generate profits for the government. Let us put that very clear, because people have always mistook Nnpc for DPR, thinking that Nnpc is a regulatory agency of the government. No, Nnpc is like Shell, Chevron, Saudi Aramco. Imagine, Saudi Aramco is about 80 years old. That is a company, an oil company of the government of Saudi Arabia. It has subsidiary in China, in United States of America, in England. I mean, all around the world. Now, what do they do? It is the cash cow of the Saudi government. So when you hear that the government of Saudi Arabia is wealthy, or the country Saudi Arabia is wealthy, it is largely due to their oil activities, all right, pioneered by Saudi Aramco, which is our Nnpc. So, in summary, Nnpc and its 10 subsidiaries, all right, talking about NPDC, SPDC, and the likes, they are supposed to be agencies, companies of federal government, all right, producing petroleum products and other petrochemicals to generate money for the smooth running of the federation. But what do you see? Nnpc has been a harbinger for rewarding political cronies. So once you assist the government in power to campaign and the government wins, you are given positions in Nnpc. Now let's come to
that is something that you cannot actually substantiate.
Yeah, of course, come on. When last did Nnpc advertise for job vacancies? Come on. Nnpc recruits. Hello.
There are different organizations in Nigeria that do their recruitment.
Nnpc recruits periodically.
Okay.
These positions are never made public. The same way you have, Federal Inland Revenue Services, all right, CBN recruiting people without, due process. Now the question is, if you know how you came into an organization, that there was an organ at the top who brought you in through the back door, who are you to blow a whistle? Now let me give you a typical example. Make no mistake, I'm not a prophet of doom. Make no mistake, what we're experiencing in Nigeria now is a tip of the iceberg. Make no mistake, insecurity, poverty, crime and criminality, it is just a tip of the iceberg.
Why do you say that? Why do you say that?
And I mentioned this, at your studio, that the worst days are ahead of the country. Like I said, it is my desire that my country prosper. But in a situation whereby those on the queue to loot are more than those already looting, you have to understand this. Those complaining now, Nigeria is corrupt, Nigeria is this, our leaders are this. The question is, I've always asked this question. Where do our leaders come from? From the sky? So those who are the ones who make them gods, we are the ones. You can imagine that once someone is appointed into position of authority, it's like a situation whereby the person has become the Alpha and Omega, wherein everybody goes to him or her to get his own share. There are people that are recruited into these agencies by these same persons without following due process, and you expect them to blow whistle. No, it can't work that way.
So we have a problem. We have a problem with the whistleblower thing.
It's a systemic problem. We have lost our nationhood. Why? Because that patriotism is not there. Those who are already there have considered themselves into a bunch of, exclusivity gang. from the public sector perspective, and of course, mainstreaming to the private sector, talking about excludability. Now, poverty has increased, but wealth is concentrated. In this case, filthy wealth is concentrated in the hands of the few. So there is an implosion. Now, ordinarily, in a system that works, okay, if you find yourself in a system where there are internal control mechanisms, you can't even contemplate beating the system. Why? Because no matter how corrupt you are, I said this before, no matter how corrupt you are, because of the purity of the system, not the individuals, because of the purity of the system rooted on the rule of law and accountability and transparency, you will naturally not contemplate it. Why? Because there are consequences. No, if you contemplate it and you are caught, definitely you go in for it. But what happens today? Like my colleague said, there are a series of probes. And if I that's why when I see senators come on air to say the federal government, I think some of our senators, if not all, are not even qualified to be in National Assembly.
Okay, let's not make this a political argument.
No, it's part of it, because your question was that who is responsible
for blowing the whistle, and who should take care of it when the whistle is blown.
Chapter 5 of the 1999 Constitution is clear. In fact, the senators or the legislative arm comes before the executive arm. So you hear a senator saying, well, we are frustrated. The federal government is not helping matters. And I ask myself, who is the federal government? You see, senators, judicial officers see themselves as separate government. Hey, the federal government is made up of the executive. In fact, not even the executive hierarchy is made up of the legislative arm, the executive arm, and the judicial arm. So when you see a public accounts committee coming to your question now, who is to blow the whistle? There is a public accounts committee into which all accounts of the federation are to be submitted to, and they investigate. And upon investigation, bring people who are found culpable to book. Now, like my colleague said, you are aware that this issue in contention ought to have been investigated by Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, or ICPC. A body has been set up to investigate. Why should you set up a body when there is an agency, in fact, agencies of government saddled primarily with the responsibility of investigating financial crimes? Now, you will give them, of course, some time to turn in their report. Politics get into it because these are party members. And you ask yourself, even those people who are there, how did they come in there? You will discover that they have no prior experience in managing box. Now, let's come to even the revenue management itself, which comes to the issue of people who are clamoring for devolution of power, so that these revenues can equally be shared. Where are this money coming from? Money from the port are coming from Lagos, Warri, Port Harcourt, Onne, etc. Now, in other countries, for example, the United Arab Emirates, in a very small country, each emirate has its own ports. We have the Dubai port, we have Sharjah port, Abu Dhabi port, Ras Al Khaimah port, etc. When these ports receive this revenue in terms of excise duties and import duties, they collect them into each of the emirates, and each emirate contributes its quota to the central treasury. So that is why they are better managed. Then what do you have? In Nigeria, you see a lot of, financial malfeasance going on. This money, you don't even know how they are collected. You don't even know how much. As we speak, we are saying it's 165 billion. If you go into the books, you will discover that those that have left the books, miraculously, are more than what has been captured as unremitted funds. So I think, ordinarily, the system in itself should have had a mechanism to enable it blow the whistle. And that mechanism cannot exist because the foundation of the system is faulty. And once the foundation is faulty, biblically, what can the righteous do? So that's it.
Okay, so Destiny, how do we correct the wrongs in the system to enable it to check itself and also correct any wrong thing?
Yes, to buttress this point, there's a connection between how you came into the system and what you're able to deliver in the system. The system is supposed to be based on recruiting people on the basis of meritocracy.
Okay.
Now, if people came into a system in a fair, equitable manner, and they came in because of their qualifications, then they will not be loyal to any godfather per se. or any patronage authority. But when people come into a system through this godfatherism and things like this, I have somebody put me there and things like that, you become loyal to interest beyond the system itself. So, like I said, you can't set up a system. When you set up a system and you allow people to circumvent the system because you can override it, the system cannot work. The human component, you know, let me explain what a system is. Why a system does not require. We all know when you were a child, you try to touch electric wire, and then the thing did something to you.
And
okay,
then you won't go there
and then you didn't need to be educated or not. After some time, you just understood that if you go there, something happens.
Yes.
Your religious belief, who you know, is irrelevant. You were told that's a system created by God. The same electricity is used to power everything here, but if you touch it naked, you get it. So a system is designed like that. So if a system is perfectly designed and the human beings are brought to the system using the system itself, like for example, the process of recruitment, the process of promotion, process of training and development, the process of discharge, process of firing workers who are redundant, if everything is systemized, therefore means that the system will be filled with people who understand their role in the system, and when there's a breakup in the system, you cannot blame a single individual. You blame people within that group, and everybody should know where the responsibility passes to. So like I told you, if people enter a system and they believe that their position in the system is at the mercy of another person,
okay,
a big boy somewhere, and the big boy does something wrong. For example, even in a small local government, we have the local government chairman, we have the councillors, we have an accountant, somebody who keeps the basic records. Now, if this person believes that his position in that place is because of the almightiness of the chairman steals $1 billion, he's supposed to audit and write a report. But what will he write? They go to a beer parlor, they drink beer, and they write clean. You understand? The human beings, you do your job, but you just write clean without doing any audit. In every organization in this country, there is an auditor. There's a system of recording. Everything is very well there. But when it comes to the human beings who are going to do this thing, they have some loyalties. Not loyalty to the system, but loyalty to individuals within the system. Okay? Once such unbridled loyalty festers inside an organization, there's nothing you are going to do. Nothing whatsoever. Because somebody has to be responsible, and then there's somebody who is giving a clean bill somewhere because he doesn't want to offend the boss, doesn't want to do something else. When you say raising, for example, if you check this George Floyd case in the US, the American police, they have a duty to protect an officer, for instance. It's normal. Every organization tries to protect themselves against the rest of the world. Now, this is a police officer who is accused of killing somebody, but the police force, because they are loyal to the system, what are the individuals? They came outside, issued a sacked all of them first, so that they will be individuals first. They did not rally around the people. They were not yet convicted when they were sacked. That's because the system is more important to them. Everybody wants to take their hands off. You caused this on yourself. That's how they see it. But here, you be hearing irrelevant arguments. They are witch hunting the police. How can you say that against the police? The police boss will even come outside and give a statement and say the police is fair. We are not, our officers are not like that, and be trying to protect the person. They don't understand what the system is. In a system, there should be consequences for breaking the system, because the losers, once a system can be beaten, human beings are naturally wired to beat it. If you bring Americans to Nigeria in our system, in 3 months they'll be corrupted.
Okay, in trying to rewire the system.
How do we do that?
Yes.
The simple solution is this: rewire the individuals in the system. It comes back to human beings, our value system, our recruitment systems, our reward systems. What is the basis of rewarding and promoting somebody in the public service? Is it on the basis of merit or on the basis of patronage? What is the basis of recruiting people into politics, into government offices? Is it on the basis of merit or on the basis of patronage? Once the process of bringing people into a system is twisted, nothing good can come out from that system. Nothing good. So, to buttress what my friend said, no matter how much you design these policies, if our systems of bringing people into government or into public offices is twisted, nothing good will come out from the system. If I can get to the public sector without knowing anybody, then I will feel no loyalty to any person in particular. But if I can, the only way for me to get into Nnpc, get into politics, or anything in this country is by knowing one big person or being loyal or kicking backs to somebody. Then when I get there, I'll feel some kind of loyalty to this person. And even when this person is doing something wrong, I will not be morally able, because I feel I do not even deserve this my office in the first place. So I will be able to keep quiet, because there's nothing to blow whistle about there. You just simply say, it's my boss, I can't do anything like that. But in developed countries, your little boss, your subordinate can report you to the system. Okay? Recently, you heard about, there was a scandal in Apple, a company, that the bosses are taking advantage of the junior staff. A junior staff reported to a body, and then all the workers came together to protect the junior staff against the company. They did what you call walk out. They walked out of the company because of one worker that complained about molestation. But who complained? It was a junior worker that complained against a senior boss. The system had a way to make the senior boss bow to the system of the company. But in this country, try and report your senior boss to anybody in this country, because they drink beer in the same beer parlor. What they simply do is say, look at what that lady is saying. You hear lecturers doing the same thing. They have carnal knowledge of students in our universities. These things happen. It took a BBC report to bring it out, because the person is not loyal to Nigeria in any way. He's more loyal to our profession. But that thing happens every day. As I speak to you, in all the universities, it's a major scandal. I attended the university, I know what happens there, but nobody will bring it out. Try and report a lecturer in the university, report a lecturer to a board of lecturers, and see what will happen. Pray that lecturer doesn't have a friend in that board. You are finished. They will deal with you. They will rally around him, say, or around you. So in that kind of system, what could come out of that system? So I see why my friend is very pessimistic about Nigeria. If you think about Nigeria very well, let me tell you something. Nigeria is a time bomb waiting to explode.
We can't call Nigeria a time bomb.
Because we are not doing...
I will be praying for doom.
No, not praying. It's just, let me tell you something. If you see, because I am a statistician, I look at numbers and variables. And those variables show a pattern, like a canvas. If you see blood here, you see knife here, you see gun there, you see death here, you don't need to be told what to see in the middle. Okay? If you are going to a place and then you are going on a road, and then the first thing you see is a gun by the roadside, then you say, okay, maybe nothing happens. You go to the left side, you see blood. Then the next thing, you see a corpse on the ground. I don't think you will move forward. You will pause and ask the question, what's happening here?
There's a probe ongoing, and let's hope that it will not go the way of others. Something would come out of it.
And people are already challenging the probe. You know why? People do not have confidence in the probe committee. When that happens, what does that mean? The chairman of that probe committee has some relationship with the person who created the panel in the first place. There's what we call conflict of interest. Now, when people say the chairman of that committee is not the right person to be the chairman because of his relationship with Rotimi Amechi, people have said all these things. These things are on paper. In developed countries, if people protest the chairman of a committee of that importance, the chairman should resign because he knows that there's obvious conflict of interest. People do not have confidence in his ability to probe that thing and bring out a solid report that is worth prosecuting about. But guess what will happen? Nothing will happen. Nothing will happen because
let's wait and see. We cannot
they don't really care the public opinion of Nigerians.
When a probe panel has been set up and then they've not come up with their findings, that would be
let's hope for the better.
The panel.
Yes, let's hope for the better.
All right, now, Dr. Ken, in trying to rearrange the system, now Destiny has talked about rewiring the humans, because most of it has to do with the human beings who work there. In trying to rewire the system, because these human beings will still need to work in the system. Some parastatals seem to work independently of their ministries. Take, for instance, the NPA working as if it's on its own, not even under the Ministry of Transportation. How do we correct that?
All right. You see, it comes back to where we started from. And the simple solution is this. You know, it looks simple, but it's quite complex. Leadership. Now, let's go back in memory. There was a time where we had a Dora Akuili, and we had the guy with EFCC there, Nuhu Ribadu, and a host of others. And the young man, President of General Mawar in NDLEA, you know, in the recent past, we've seen what he has been able to do. We didn't know that NDLEA was existing until very recently when he was appointed. Now, that is not to mean that some people may not have issues with their modus operandi. It's basically wants to have a leadership that harbors corruption, that harbors nepotism, that believes in meritocracy. Definitely, things we fall in line. Like my colleague said, we are inherently wired to commit crime. Make no mistake. All right?
Who did that
Once
wire?
there are no, with everyone, let's not pretend about it. But what deters criminality, what deters corruption anywhere in the world is the consequences. All right? Now, let's take, for instance, I asked this very simple question. What is the national goal of Nigeria? I live in a country where there's a national goal. Research from universities are tendered towards that national goal. Every institution of government is tendered towards that national goal. I give you a typical example. The UAE is working towards becoming a complete AI economy. Artificial intelligence, blockchain, and all the likes. And every research from every university, all right, in one way or the other, is geared towards that national objective. Every agency of government is aligned towards that national objective. And emails keep coming on a daily basis reminding you of your commitment towards that objective. So there is this sense of nationhood. All right? Now, if there's a tone in corporate government, what we call the tone at the top. What is the tone at the top? Sometimes we hear this like the body language of the president or the body language of the governor. And after a while, there's not even a language, not even a body, let alone a language. Then things begin to work the way they were prior to the assumption of office of that particular leader. So until we have genuine leadership that can give a purposeful leadership that happens corruption, we have seen it in Rwanda. Despite the war, despite the division, despite the lack of unanimity of opinion that happened pre and during the war, they have come together. We've seen it in different places within Africa. We've seen it within Africa, how countries have been able to demonstrate leadership. Look at the late Magufuli, of Tanzania. Now, he demonstrated leadership, and every agency of government fell in line. And that had sway until his unfortunate demise. So we need leadership and we need patriotism. Nigerians are no longer patriotic. Why? Because they have lost faith in leadership. There is no leadership in the country. So to that extent, when I mean leadership, purposeful leadership. So to that extent, everybody is to attend to Israel. Every man for himself, God for us all. So until there is that moral rearmament, which I've always canvassed for, until we have that national orientation at individual level and at various levels of institutions, we will not be able to build a country of our dream. So first, the government needs to give a direction and act it. All right? It's not just on paper because we have enough legislations. In fact, we are not bereft of laws. What we need at this moment is implementation. And this must be done by a leader who has strength of character, who can, take the bull by the horn, irrespective of ethnicity, irrespective of party affiliation or religion, shun all forms of clannishness, and be very decisive. Let the laws be invoked on offenders of the law, and let people get justice. Now, the reason why I say this is because these economic challenges that we have some undertone, political undertone. There is no economic policy without, economic ideology without a political ideology driving it. All right? Now, if we can be proud of the country called Nigeria, we must ensure that these variables are reorganized. And to that extent, it will mean that our leadership recruitment process will have to change. A situation whereby you vote a candidate because of 500 naira, because of a bag of salt or a bag of rice, and you suffer 8 years minimum because it's no longer 8 or 4 years now. We have seen that it has not paid us. So what do we need to do? We need to wake up. We need to wake up, and we need to purge that country of the prevailing corruption, the prevailing clannishness, the prevailing, selfishness, because we are selfish, because we don't believe that we can, make the country work for all. We just believe that once I get into power, it is for myself and my family members. And we we have forgotten, and that is what is playing out now. We thought that when we amass wealth, the elite in this case, when the elite amass wealth, they thought that they can have security to themselves, they can have the best of life. But they have realized that the onslaught from criminals is now on them. So that is why you see them crying. Don't think they mean well. They don't mean well. These politicians don't mean well for the country.
When you say this, you generalize and you say all.
The reason why they are crying out now is because they are no longer safe. They cannot go to their villages. All right? They cannot go to their villages. That is why you see them crying. They don't mean well until they genuinely sit down and craft a paradigm.
Okay. On a final note, before we go, we were talking about budgetary allocation.
Yes.
How capital project does not get much of our budget.
Yes.
Now, how do we how do we ensure that what will sustain the country beyond just payment of salaries, we have all of that included in the budget?
Yes.